Hello, hello, and welcome. This is Let's Coach 2023 from Life Coach University. I am Nancy Sawyer, here your life and transformation coach who teaches midlife mastery. So I'm here with you today. If you hopped on and it's your first time with me, a little bit of housekeeping. In the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A and you'll see the raise hand icon. So if you want to come up and be coached, I'm glad to do that with you one-on-one. Just click that raise hand icon and I can bring you up. You can stay off camera if you'd like, or you can come on camera. It's up to you. Or if you prefer, you can put a question in the Q&A and I'll be glad to peek at that while I'm talking here today and answer any questions, any situations, challenges, or just stuff that's on your mind that you'd like a third unbiased party or second unbiased party to reflect on for you. So today, I would like to talk to you about relationships and expectations. And this is based on some calls I've been having recently with some clients. I'm noticing there's some things coming up that are common patterns. And in teaching midlife mastery, a lot of the things that I teach and talk about with my clients are things that they just don't teach you this stuff in school. You know, we go to school and you learn math and science and English and stuff, but they don't teach you how to have a healthy relationship. They don't teach you how to communicate with others in a way that's going to be clear and helpful to both of the parties. They don't teach you how to honor what you need and what's right for you, what's in alignment with you, when that's not in direct alignment with someone else who's in your world. So I want to talk to you about expectations. I was speaking with a client recently, and in her relationship, there is some difficulty going on. They're having a tough time right now. There's some struggles going on. And as in most cases with any issues or challenges we're facing, I believe the answer is oftentimes to dial it back, to step back away from the actual situation and to take a look at the very, very basic, simple things. And so one of the things I've been speaking about is expectations. You see, we have expectations in our head of what this relationship is going to look like, where it's going, how it should operate and function on a daily basis, what the other person should be doing for us, what we are supposed to be doing for the other person. We have all these expectations in our heads. And I ask you, are you being clear about these expectations to the other party? Whether it's a spouse, a husband, a wife, a friend, a coworker, a child, whoever it is, are you being clear about your expectations? Are you being clear about what you are seeking from the other person? Now, this is a little bit of, it's a little bit confusing because if you've heard me before, I also don't like expectations at all. And I say you shouldn't have any expectations. I say that having expectations really often leads to disappointment. Expectation is the mother of disappointment is one of the phrases I use often. So in my own life, I seek to have very few expectations of others. That way, we're not disappointed. And that way, when they do show up in a way that is wonderful and incredible, we can be very grateful instead of expecting that. But one thing is important, especially if you are entering voluntarily into a relationship or a partnership with another person. It's important that you are both very clear on what you are expecting to happen in this engagement, in this relationship. It's important to voice that. It's important to be very clear on that. because people are not mind readers. I'm not a mind reader. People around me are not mind readers. And oftentimes we expect people to know what we're saying, to know what we're thinking. We expect people to know exactly what we want. Sometimes we make assumptions. We assume that the other person knows what we want. We assume that the other person knows what makes us happy. So it's very important to be clear on those expectations, to be clear and to communicate with our partners or whoever it is that of the expectations we have, and also of what makes us happy, especially in a relationship or a marriage. You know, in speaking with people in midlife, a lot of times there are changes that happen. The kids graduate high school and they go off to college, and then the relationship dynamic at home is very different. Or one of the children leaves the household, and maybe if there are two kids, now the relationship is different. The dynamic is different at home. Maybe you've been caring for an aging parent, and all of your time and energy, much of that has been spent. And then that person passes on. And all of a sudden you're left with all this extra time, and you're kind of like, and the dynamic changes, things change. Now you're home a lot, where you had been at the hospice a lot, or at the hospital, or at the rehab, wherever, visiting that parent, right? Now all of a sudden you have more time, you're home more. The dynamic changes. So it's important to note that as you go through life is a long journey, and there are different seasons of it. And so there are shifts. Things change. It's okay to feel discomfort, to feel uncomfortable, to know that things are changing, and to not know what's next. It's okay to say, gee, I'm not sure what to do with myself now. This is confusing. I had been spending all my time caring for my child, my mother, my whoever it is, my work, and now I'm retired. Now what do I do? It's okay to feel that discomfort, because in that discomfort is a time to explore. It's a time to try something new. I want to point out again, there's a Q&A here. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in there. I'll be glad to keep an eye on it, or I can just continue with my stream of consciousness as you've seen me do in the past. I love to do that as well. So anything that is, sorry, my phone just went off. That threw me off. And I did turn it off, but my daughter has the emergency do not disturb, I don't know, the emergency breakthrough. So I just lost my train of thought. So I'm just going to take a deep breath while I refocus and gather myself. Thank you for your patience. So as we go through different things in life, there are different seasons, and there are transitional times. And while those times can seem scary and can be disruptive, they actually, if we look at it from a different point of view, we can look at it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to try something new, to maybe do that thing that you've always wanted to do, or we're kind of thinking about trying one time, but then you never had the time. Do you have those things in the back of your head, right? Geez, I always wanted to try kayaking or kickboxing, or I always wanted to join a book club, whatever it is. What's the thing? So in these transitional times, sometimes we feel like the foundation is unsettled because things are changing, but we can embrace that as a new opportunity to try something new. And by the way, as you've heard me say a lot of times before, when you try something new, if you don't like it, that's okay. Life is a grand experiment, okay? So just try something new. If you find that you're feeling unsettled, if you find that you feeling stuck, if you're in a transitional time, give yourself grace, try something new, see what comes up for you. It's all an experiment. You're either going to like it and say, yeah, I want more of that in my life, or you're going to say, I don't really like this. I don't think I want to try that again. At which point you try something new. That's perfectly fine, right? Here's the thing. When we're in relationships, getting back to expectations, right? It's very important when you're laying out your expectations or talking about your expectations to be clear on what your expectations are, to be clear on what you need to be happy and to thrive. And the thing is, we don't necessarily just automatically know this. This is where we have to spend the time to be with ourselves, to sit quietly, to examine how we are feeling in certain situations, right? So if I'm saying to a partner, I really need more space, doesn't mean I want to break up with someone. It may mean I just need more space for me because I need time to keep organized. I need time to process my thoughts. I need time to plan and prepare for my days. A lot of times we keep ourselves very busy. We go from one thing to the next, and we're always hustling, and we're jumping. And then we feel overwhelmed. And then we feel stress. And then we start snapping at people. We start responding in anger. We're exhausted, right? Oh, I just need a day off. I just need a vacation. But what if we didn't have to wait for the vacation or the weekend? What if we created our life and built our life so that it was not just bearable, but incredible every day? What if we set aside time for ourselves to regroup, to reframe, to focus on ourselves? What if we did that on a daily basis? How would we be able to do that? This touches on so many things. One of them is on having boundaries. And that means it's okay to say no. That means it's okay to be honest with those around us and say, I am too busy right now. I can't add something else to my calendar. I can't add something else to my schedule. Instead of showing up as a people pleaser and shoulding yourself, I should go to this party. I should say yes to that volunteer opportunity. I should be helping out, right? You see, we only have so much bandwidth. And so to honor ourselves so that we're caring for ourselves, caring and loving for ourselves, that means we have to allow ourselves time to breathe, to pause, to rest, to give ourselves what we need to feed our soul. Because if we don't do that, we can't show up for other people as a good version of ourselves, as a great version of ourselves. So part of this includes taking the time, downtime, to reflect, to take some notes. What is it that I need? What is it that I am seeking in a partner, in a spouse, in a job, in my career? What kind of parent do I want to be? What kind of girlfriend do I want to be? What kind of coworker, boss do I want to be? How am I doing with that? If I look at who I want to be, how I want to show up, and then I compare that list to how I am showing up every day. Do those compare? Do I need to make some changes here? Because as we talk about expectations, we also want to address expectations with ourselves. What expectations do I have of myself, right? With grace and understanding that I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress and also a masterpiece. Yes, it is possible to be both at the same time, and you are that as well. You know, how am I seeking to show up? How am I seeking to show up as a mom, as a spouse, as a collaborator, as a coworker, as a volunteer? How do I want to show up? Get very, very clear on that. What are your expectations of yourself? What does the ideal version of you look like? How does that person show up? Are you clear with these expectations of yourself? And are you clear about those with others as well? Would you be able to say to your partner, I really want to show up more present and more focused when we're together? Can you let me know how I'm doing? See, they don't teach us this stuff in school, that you can actually be open. You can have conversations. You can address what needs attention. And there's no shame in it. There's no embarrassment. There's no guilt. And it doesn't have to be negative. The beauty of life is we get to create our being. We get to create who we are. We get to create how we show up. And we do that by making choices. So it's important to step back and identify, get in alignment, right? Who do we want to be? What are our expectations of self? What is my expectation of having a business or having a career, being in a relationship, being a spouse, being a parent? What are my expectations? How do I define success in those spaces? And then taking the time to observe yourself. Am I showing up in these ways? So I would say just pick one part of life, one little part, and focus on that. This personal growth work, it's quite a large undertaking, right? There's just so many different parts to our lives, to our personalities, to our dreams, to our goals, to our experiences. It's like taking everything out of the fridge and throwing it in a bowl and mixing it all up, right? So we have so much to work with. It's so exciting, actually, to think about all the different pieces that go into our life, into making a beautiful life, and how we can play with that a little bit to make a beautiful life for ourselves. But at the very core of it, in order to do that, we have to be aware of what we are seeking, of what we want that to look like. What are our expectations? What are our hopes? What are our dreams for that life, that future that we want? And then how can we create that? And what behaviors, what habits do we need? What skills do we need to learn? Excuse me, one second. My phone is blowing up and it's my daughter. So I just need to make sure that she's okay. Oh, she is. Okay. I apologize for that. So as I think about, how I want to show up here as a coach, right? I turned my phone off. This is actually a great teaching lesson, great learning lesson, right? Showing up, being fully present as a coach. I want to be fully present. I turn my phone off. I eliminate distractions. Of course, the one thing, there's always like a wild card, right? So my wild card today is my 18-year-old daughter, who, again, on my phone, I have it set so that when it rings, I turn it off. When it rings, it doesn't ring. I don't hear it. It doesn't distract me. This actually helps me when I'm in work mode and trying to get work done, right? But the wild card here, she has that emergency breakthrough. So when she does text or call, it comes through. So my it's an 18-year-old teenage daughter. So they get very excited about certain things, or certain things that to me may seem small, may seem like a very big issue for them. And this is the beauty of being a parent and teen and having survived the teenage years and understanding how it works. So as my phone is blowing up here, as I'm talking, first the phone, she called me and I ignored it. And then she texted and texted again and texted it. It went 5 texts. So finally I had to interrupt and say, you know what, let's just make sure she's not, stranded on the side of the road or in an emergency situation. So thank you for that. I did check on that. She is not in an emergency situation, although she is very excited about something that would be very exciting to an 18-year-old daughter. So something that for me can wait until I am freed up later this afternoon. So these are the things, right? When we're creating who we want to be, how we want to show up, it's important to acknowledge what we're doing well, what could use some improvement, and to be honest with ourselves. Honest with ourselves, sometimes our ego really doesn't want to be told that, hey, you're not doing a great job. We always kind of want to be right. We have a tendency to want to be right. And then in the other direction, sometimes we beat ourselves up for not being good enough. So it's important to, number one, acknowledge what's true for you. And what's true for you means, how are you feeling? What are you observing about yourself? What are you observing about your life experience? What is coming up for you? And of all of that, if things are negative, if there are negative things happening, what can you do? What steps can you take to reduce the negative? If everything is coming up rosy and everything's great, that's awesome. Is there any way you can increase that? Is there any way you can share that with someone else? Is there any way you can use that beauty and those gifts to help the world become a better place? So back to relationships and expectations, which is where I started. When we become very clear with ourselves, when we take the time to sit with ourselves and we identify who we are, what we need to thrive, what helps us show up as a great version of ourselves, then we can ask that of another person. Maybe as if you're refiguring a relationship, if you're in that time where, again, your kids went off to college, someone's parent has passed on, and there's a shift in your dynamic of a relationship, right? There's a shift. Someone has retired and now they're home more, right? There are these times where there are shifts and expectations may change. And it's important to be in constant communication, checking in with each other. And also, one of the biggest things that I've come up with a couple of clients this week is understanding that expectations change, situations change, and it's okay to say, this X worked for me for a few years, for a couple decades, for a couple weeks, whatever your timeline is, and now it's not working for me anymore. And this is what I need now. This is my expectation now. This is changing. Can we work together to create this? Can we do this for each other, right? When you have expectations in a relationship specifically, it is okay to say, for me to thrive in this relationship, I need whatever, to see you regularly or to have X amount of space. I need to feel safe in our partnership. I need to feel like I'm a priority. Whatever your list is, it can be, there's no judging of that list. Your list is your list. And once you identify that list, you can say, this is what I'm seeking from this relationship, from this partnership, from whatever it is, right? You can voice that with confidence and with love and with kindness. And then the other person gets to say, okay, that's great. I can do that. Or I can't do this, but how about if we do this instead? Could this work for you? Right? They get to say yes or no, or what else, right? And then they get to say to you, this is what I'm seeking. This is what I need to thrive. And then you get to say, okay, I can do that. Or no, I really can't do that. Or how about this? Instead of X, could we try Y? See, it doesn't have to be that complicated. We get very complicated in our relationships because we're coming from places of ego and expectations and the conditional love that we are raised to have in this society. If you love me, then, if you love me, then you will do this. And then it gets to a battle, right? It's a keeping score kind of battle. Well, I did this for you, so you need to do this for me, right? It's keeping score. That is conditional love. And that is not quite as fun as unconditional love. See, unconditional love means I love you no matter what you do for me or do not do for me, because it's not based on what you do for me. It's not based on my ego or what I am seeking from you. It's because I love you unconditionally. And so when we come from that space, we want the other person to thrive. And then our mindset changes because we think about how can I help them to thrive rather than what can they do for me or what do I have to do for them, right? These are beautiful questions to reflect on. And it doesn't have to just be relationships, a romantic relationship. It can be, again, parent-child. It can be a coworker thing. It can be a work thing. It can be in a community, if you have some sort of neighborhood community or another community you're part of. How can I help this to thrive? Shift to that from what does this give me? What can I get from this? What am I getting from this? How can I help it to thrive? How can I support the greater good? When we have this mind shift, it often not only makes us happier, it makes the whole dynamic and the whole situation better. So be clear. Again, to wrap up as we're getting close to time here, we want to be clear on what our expectations are. Have the communication. Don't expect the person around you to be a mind reader. Clearly communicate your expectations and what you need. And then instead of expecting them to say yes, or bullying them to say yes, or threatening them, they get the choice to say, yeah, I can do that, or I can't. And then you get the choice to say, okay, if you can't do that, maybe this situation isn't going to work for me. It's okay. It's all about choices and we don't have to tie so much emotion and shoulds and judgment to these things. So when we break it down, take a step back and get very, very simple, we can be much happier and create a better existence for ourselves, a happier life for ourselves, a future that we love. I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to wrap this up. Again, I'm Nancy Sawyer. I am at nancybsawyer.com. I am a coach who helps people to master midlife. I hope this has been a helpful session again today. I'll be back next Thursday with you at 1 p.m. for Life Coach University at Let's Coach 2023. Thanks for joining me today.